Welcome to your Catholic Drive Time,
keeping you informed and inspired.
We love God. We ought to be able to talk about Him.
getting you started on your day.
With the latest in breaking news and information.
From the Vatican to the White House and everything in between.
It's serious, it's fun, it's your Catholic Drive Time.
Now, here's your host, Joe McClain.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to Catholic Drive Time, keeping you informed and inspired. I'm your host, Joe McClain. So good to be on with you. Praise be to God. On this Tuesday, November the 22nd, on the memorial of Saint Cecilia. You know what you ought to do today? Go to Formed and listen to the audio drama on Saint Cecilia. You're welcome. I'm not even going to charge you for that advice. I ought to because it's that good. But nonetheless, you're welcome. Go to Formed today and listen to the audio drama on Saint Cecilia. It is fantastic. But coming up at 15 past the hour, we are going to be recapping the Fall USCCB meeting with Jim Haynes, host of The Simple Truth. What do we make of Broglio taking over as president or Lori as vice president? What about Archbishop Broglio's background working for Sedano? He was questioned about that by The Pillar. We're going to be talking with Jim Haynes at 15 past. Do join us if you can. Of course, we've been reading in the headlines about the fall of FTX. What does this mean? Is the fall of FTX really the rise of CBDCs? And how will that affect Catholics in the future? We're going to ask that question to Eric Sammons coming up at 35 past the hour. Brent Haynes is going to be our guest, top of the next hour. CEO of Disney got fired, and they brought in the last guy to come back and fix things. Their stocks have plunged by more than 40%. It's kind of a big deal. Is it the old get woke, go broke thing? Is that what's going on there? We're going to find out with Brent Haynes in the next hour. Of course, lots of stories in the news. Of course, the head of Israel's military intelligence says Iran is close, almost 90% there, to enriching uranium. So, nothing to see here. Move along. Hey, U.S. drivers can expect to pay more on average for fuel this Thanksgiving holiday, of course. It's still, even though prices have come down, it's still 24.5 cents higher than it was a year ago. So enjoy that. CBS has come out with breaking news stories. Apparently, the Hunter Biden laptop thing is actually true. 2.5 years after everybody else knew that. 36 pro-life countries have taken to a stand against the United Nations and President Joe Biden for their pressure, often using financial incentives, to get abortion legalized in those countries and to provide abortifacients. So hats off to those 36 pro-life countries. Good morning to you, Rudy Carlos.
Good morning, Joe. It's good to be here. Every day we stray further and further from the beginning of the month. We are so close to Thanksgiving.
They can say the truth.
Oh, the other thing.
You're saying.
Yeah, well, yeah, that too.
Okay.
But here we are. We are, what is it today? Let's see here.
It's almost Thanksgiving. Can you imagine?
We got about 2 days left. 2 days left to Thanksgiving, thanks be to God.
Amazing.
I'm looking forward to the turkey.
Yeah.
Sweet potatoes. I'm sorry.
Rub it in.
Never mind.
Pies. Go ahead and say it's fine. Cookies. Yeah, cornbread.
Whoops.
It's all right.
Did I mention cookies?
Go ahead. Enjoy yourself, funny man. Okay? Have a good time.
I thought you were almost done with your carnivore diet.
I went 3 months. I got to go 6.
What?
Yeah. I got 3 more months.
Wow.
3 more months of meat.
3 more months for bad behavior?
Just meat. Or it's good. It's tasty and all. But it's definitely not mashed taters, okay? It's definitely not that. Speaking of which, Adrian Fonseca's here on the ones and twos. Good morning to you, Adrian Fonseca.
Howdy. Praise be to God. It's good to be here.
Is it?
It is good to be here.
Now, you're going to join me in solidarity by not eating mashed potatoes this Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah, so the weather outside has been it's been raining quite a bit recently.
It's been frightful, some would say.
Can we focus a bit here? You're giving up cornbread as well, right? Like no.
I tell you what, Joe.
No cornbread.
I will not have a single green bean. Not a single one. Not even a little. I won't even smell one. I won't even smell it. But my mom, she made fried chicken yesterday.
Fried chicken.
She made fried chicken, and it was like KFC. You got nothing on this. So good. So good.
Wow.
And thank you guys for your prayers yesterday. Because guess what?
What?
My brother did not snore last night.
Praise be to God.
It was amazing.
Praise be. Now, where was your pillow at the time he was not snoring?
It was over his face.
Oh,
No, I'm joking.
I was wondering. All right. Well, at any rate, we have lots to give thanks to God for. And one of those things is our good friend of the program, Jesus Robles, has been promoted to sergeant. He passed. He went from 156 on the list up to 17.
Wow.
So he crushed his assessments.
Now, what happened to Polichicho?
Polichicho may or may not be getting a promotion. We're going to have to get some insider scoop on that story. But nonetheless, let's pray. Let's get started. We have a lot to talk about today. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thine intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. Now your headlines with Rudy Carlos.
Good morning. Thanks for tuning into Catholic Drive Time. Today is Tuesday, November 22nd, and here are your headlines this morning. Reuters reports Qatar sells 27-year LNG deal with China as competition heats up. Qatar Energy has signed a 27-year deal to supply China's Sinopec with liquefied natural gas in the longest such LNG agreement to date, as volatility drives buyers to seek long-term supplies. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February, competition for LNG, liquid natural gas, has become intense, with Europe in particular needing vast amounts to help reduce Russian pipeline gas that has been used to make up for almost 40% of the continent's imports. LifeSite News reports pro-life doctors file lawsuit to take dangerous abortion pills off the market. A coalition of pro-life doctors and medical groups filed a lawsuit on Friday, hoping to revoke the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's approval of the chemical abortion drugs mifepristone and misoprostol. Filed in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Texas, the suit by the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine and the American Association for Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists, the American College Pediatricians, the Christian Medical and Dental Associations, the physicians Sean Jester, Regina Frost-Clark, Tyler Johnson, and George Delgado, argues that the FDA's 2000 approval of chemical abortions fraudulently characterized pregnancy as an illness for which chemical abortions was a therapeutic, while neglecting to study their own actual harms. The Epoch Times reports Germany to offer Poland Patriot system after stray missile crash. Germany has offered Warsaw the Patriot missile defense system to help it secure its airspace after a stray missile crashed into Poland last week. Ground-based air defense systems such as Raytheon's Patriot are built to intercept incoming missiles. And Ground News reports Europe rushes to fill up on Russian diesel before ban begins. European traders are rushing to fill tanks in the region with Russian diesel before an EU ban begins in February, as alternative sources remain limited. And those were your headline news this morning. I love you.
The saint of the day is Saint Edmund. Edmund was the son of a king of East Anglia, one of the early small kingdoms that composed primitive England. He was born around 840 at a time when Christianity had already spread in various regions of England. His father, a man of great piety, abdicated his throne to his son when Edmund reached the age of 15. He then traveled to Rome and retired in a monastery to dedicate his last years to meditation and prayer. Edmund showed himself a model ruler and Catholic from the first. In addition to being just and good, he was also a man of extraordinary energy. He realized the danger the Scandinavians represented to his country and prepared it militarily for possible war. He was not mistaken in his prevision. The Danish soon attacked the English dominions, and particularly his kingdom. In the first attack in 870, he bravely repulsed 2 Danish chiefs. They so returned, however, joined by other aggressors and overtook St. Edmund by their great numbers. He was taken prisoner, loaded down with chains, and brought before the Danish chieftain Hengir and Håkon. The Danish chief made various proposals of peace to St. Edmund, but since they went against the Catholic religion and interest of his subjects, he would not accept the terms. He was cruelly tortured and finally decapitated on November 20th in 870. After a glorious defense and initial triumph, St. Edmund was defeated and taken prisoner. He was obliged to negotiate with the victors, who demanded that they relinquish important advantages for his kingdom. He refused to do so, since such terms would favor the reestablishment of paganism in his lands. He resisted and died. You see St. Edmund's high understanding of his public mission, his keen consciousness of his role and obligations as king in both the religious and temporal spheres. You can see the thinking of St. Edmund in his time. To install a pagan dynasty in his kingdom would represent the paganization of the state and its people. Thus, it could cause the apostasy of his people and the loss of their souls. He understood perfectly the link between politics and religion. Because of this, he did not accept the proposals of the Vikings. For this, he was martyred. We don't have high positions and titles, but we have a vocation to defend the Catholic Church from the enemies within, which is a high vocation. Often a high vocation is more than a high position. Let us pray to St. Edmund to give us statesmen and churchmen who have this spirit of dedication to the true cause. Let us also ask him to give us the determination to be faithful until death to our vocation. St. Edmund, pray for us.
Praise be to God in all things. The gospel today comes to us from Luke 21, 5 through 11. While some people were speaking about how the temple was adorned with costly stones and votive offerings, Jesus said, "All that you see here, the days will come when there will not be left a stone upon another stone that will not be thrown down." Then they asked him, "Teacher, when will this happen? And what sign will there be when all these things are about to happen?" He answered, "See that you are not deceived, for many will come in my name, saying, 'I am he,' and 'the time is come.' Do not follow them. When you hear of wars and insurrections, do not be terrified, for such things must happen first, but it will not immediately be the end." Then he said to them, "Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be powerful earthquakes, famines, and plagues from place to place. And awesome sights and mighty signs will come from the sky." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. St. Cyril of Alexandria said, "For the only begotten Son of God, when he came to save the world, wished to be in secret, that he might bear the cross for us. But his second coming shall not be in secret, but terrible and open. For he shall descend in the glory of God the Father, with the angels attending him, to judge the world in righteousness." Close quote. St. Cyril, pray for us. St. Gregory the Great had a lot to say on the gospel today. St. Gregory says, "God denounces the woes that shall forerun the destruction of the world, that so they may the less disturb when they come, as having been foreknown. For darts strike the less which are foreseen. And so he says, but when ye shall hear of wars and commotions," etc. Wars refer to the enemy, commotions to citizens. "To show us then that we shall be troubled from within and without, he asserts that one, we suffer from the enemy, the other from our own brethren." He goes on to say, "But that the end will not immediately follow these evils which come first, it is added, these things must first come to pass, but the end is not yet. For the last tribulation is preceded by many tribulations, because many evils must come first, that they may await that evil which has no end. For it must needs be that we should suffer some things from heaven, some from earth, some from the elements, and some from men." Gregory would also say, "By patience, then, we possess our souls, because when we are said to govern ourselves, we begin to possess that very thing which we are. But for this reason, the possession of the soul is laid in the virtue of patience, because patience is the root and guardian of all virtues. Now patience is to endure calmly the evils which are inflicted by others, and also to have no feeling of indignation against him who inflicts them." Close quote. St. Gregory the Great, pray for us. Don't go anywhere. Catholic Drive Time will be right back. In fact, what's coming up is Jim Haynes from A Simple Truth and a recap of the Fall USCCB meeting. All that and more is coming up next. Don't go anywhere.
Atheists claim they don't need God to be a good person, implying God's not relevant to morality. But is this true? Well, atheists can be good in the sense of knowing behaviors that respect the goods of human nature and living accordingly. St. Paul acknowledges this natural moral law in Romans chapter 2. But this doesn't mean God is irrelevant when it comes to morality. And here's the reason. Besides God's grace being necessary to live the moral law perfectly and merit heaven, God is necessary for the law to be morally binding. How can the moral law be binding if there's no moral lawgiver behind it that surpasses human authority? The answer is, it can't. So an atheist can follow the natural moral law, but only the theist is consistent in saying that such a law is morally obligatory. I'm Carlo Broussard with the ready reason for Catholic Answers, Catholic.com.
So many of us carry such heavy burdens.
You're crazy!
Deep within, we struggle.
Come on, babe. It'll be fun.
Because sin separates us from God.
She's having a relationship with George.
But thanks to the grace of confession, God compassionately listens, forgives, and sets us free. So if it's been a while since you've been to confession or Mass, come home and experience a fresh start. Visit CatholicsComeHome.org.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to Catholic Drive Time, keeping you informed and inspired. I'm your host, Joe McClain. So good to be on with you. Hey, FTX has fallen. Is CBDC's on the rise? Eric Sammons from Crisis Magazine will be on with us at 35 past the hour to talk about the implications. I mean, $50 billion, I think, was lost. Will they ever get it back? Probably not. But really, it's the CBDCs we have to look out for most, and we're going to be discussing that. So do join us at 35 past the hour. Joining us right now, though, is the host of The Simple Truth, 4 p.m. Eastern on the Station of the Cross, Monday through Friday, Jim Haynes. Good morning to you, Jim.
Good morning, Joe. How are you today?
Praise be to God. I am alive, and that counts. How are you?
Doing great. Yeah, thanks be to God.
Now, last week, you had a front seat at the USCCB's fall meeting. First of all, it was the Men's March, which you are a co-founder of. Tell us about that. How did the Men's March go there?
Men's March was good. Yeah, Men's March, National Men's March to Abolish Abortion Rally for Personhood, and went well. You know, what we're trying to do is simply give the opportunity for those to come and join us in a movement that would say, look, we got to end this daily ongoing mass murder of the preborn, this exploitation of pregnant moms in need by the thousands every day. And if you're for that, if you're for calling for personhood now from conception, fertilization, which we all ought to be on board for, then let's get together and do it. So we gave that opportunity in Baltimore to the bishops to come join us in this, to face reality, take responsibility, repent, make a new resolve to do more. We had 2 bishops come out and join us at the time when we were praying the Holy Rosary. So they prayed a little bit of the Rosary with us, gave us a few remarks. Bishop Strickland of Tyler, Texas, Bishop Joseph Coffey of the Military Archdiocese, Auxiliary Bishop there. And so it's good to have a little bit of a presence from the bishops. But obviously, we would love to have some more. And so by God's grace, hopefully we'll be back in Baltimore, giving that opportunity once again next year and giving those men an opportunity to be men with us, to stand up. And as lay people, we got to continue to call them on in true charity.
Yeah, amen to that. You also had an opportunity to be present in front of the bishops at their meeting, ask questions too. How did that go?
Yeah, it was good. I had media credentials through the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network, and my first time being inside the meeting, I went to the convocation of bishops in 2017, which was very eye-opening to me. This was also very revealing in many ways. Some want to say that that to criticize the bishops in any way, or to call them on in charity in any way, that it can't really be done, that it's bishop bashing, people will want to say. Well, it isn't. We've got to be honest about what we're really looking at. And when we look at what went on inside that meeting, we've got to be honest about some things. We can't just say, joy, everything is wonderful, there's no problems here. There are some very big problems that we really have to look at. And so we got to look those things square in the eye. And one thing I'll just mention, the general scope of things that I think it kind of sets an understanding of a lot of what was going on there that I saw that was very disappointing, is that they give out an award. The USCCB gives out an award named after Cardinal Bernardine, the CCHD. We know all the problems with that originating with Saul Alinsky. There's problems that continue today that go uncorrected, but they name an award after him, and they give it out acting like this is some wonderful thing. And he's the one that came up with the seamless garment, the consistent life ethic, which can be understood in a proper way if we understand things in right order and understand that the daily mass murder of innocent human beings is far more important than any other issue, as important as all the issues that affect human dignity are. Then it can be a good thing. But oftentimes this has been distorted. It has been used to water down what is going on with the mass murder of the preborn, make it just one issue among many, and to give false cover for people to vote for pro-abortion Democrats. So it's been a massive problem, and that was the sense throughout the entire USCCB. No sense of understanding a right order between the issues. They kind of act like they're all really the same. In fact, they minimize abortion so much, they would act like it's far less than all the other issues, sadly.
Mr. Havens, thanks for joining us. As you were there, you probably saw that there was a regime change. There's a new president coming in, Archbishop Gomez stepping down. Do you think that these are just growing pains, or do you think that it's going to be more of the same, in the next couple of years? Another thing that became apparent from these meetings was that the voting guide was postponed until after the 2024 election. Do you think that maybe things are going to change a little bit? I mean, Father Broglio, he's supposed to be pretty solid in pro-life. What do you think?
Yeah, all by God's grace, we've got to pray for these men, pray for these guys that are coming in. It did seem, by way of how the votes went down, that even though there's a vocal minority that really seems to control things within the USCCB, when you really watch what goes on at the meetings. And, a lot of the video is out there. Everything that I could see publicly inside the meeting is available for people to watch. It was all videoed. So you can take a look at it and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And so that vocal minority that is really off track, they seem to control things, almost seem to have like a bullying influence on the others. The others that seem to be afraid to stand up to them and to say what's what, and to really just proclaim the truth boldly. They seem to be, just very weak in that regard. So that's the tone. It's really this vocal minority. But the votes, when you look at the votes that are cast by secret ballots, so nobody knows who anybody votes for, but you see the results of the votes, seem to always be going in the direction of the guy who would be more faithful of those that would be up for the vote. At least when it came down to the final two, it would often go that direction. And so, look, I think the good, sincere bishops who are striving to be faithful and might just be rather weak, I hate to say it, rather cowardly. Again, though, we got to pray for them. I think they've got the numbers if only they would stand up. And so, again, our position as lay people is we've got to pray for them. We've got to try to strengthen them, encourage them, and do all that we can to let them know that we've got their back and we want them to stand up and be faithful. And that inspires us. And when you look at, the putting off the vote, I guess you could say what really happened with the result of that Forming Consciences for Faithful Citizenship document and how that all went down. They said, look, we don't have enough time to put a new document in. There's a lot of things at play here, but they said, immediately following the 2024 election, we're going to put an entirely new document together. We'll have time for that, and we'll get it done by 2028. So there's a lot that's at play and what's going to happen with all of that. But it's going to be the same document for 2024. It's going to say abortion is preeminent, but then they've got, various language within the document that does allow people to water it down as they see fit and to give false cover for voting for these pro-abortion Democrats. It is nowhere near strong enough a document. They'll have a new introduction to it, some new bulletin inserts and things like that. But really, they've got to come out and they ought to be proclaiming, look, we need personhood now. It's a scientific fact. These children are children from conception, fertilization. We're murdering innocent people by the thousands every single day in this country. Do not vote for this. Do not vote for those who advocate for it. I don't know why it's that hard for them to say that.
Yeah. I was also astounded at their silence, at their particular silence on the marriage issue when last week many Republicans abandoned ship on the traditional marriage issue and voted to enact gay marriage as law in our land. I thought that was deeply troubling. If you can't support traditional marriage between a man and a woman, then how are you ever truly going to support a pro-life community? They are inseparable. What do you think, though? I mean, 2018 was the summer that broke a lot of people spiritually with all of the scandal, the McCarrick scandal. And yet Archbishop Timothy Broglio, Archdiocese Military Services, served under Cardinal Sodano, who helped to cover up a lot of the sex abuse and had a relation to Theodore McCarrick as well as Maciel in Mexico. So did also, by the way, Bishop Barry Nestout, who was elected chairman of the Conference of Committee on Child and Youth Protection. He served under McCarrick directly. What do you make of these elections? Do you see them as strong? Do you see them as more of the same? In particular to Broglio, I would love to get your thoughts.
Again, we got to pray for him. I think that he's going to be under a lot of pressure coming in to stick to the status quo, maybe make a little bit of a difference here and there. But we really need bold, strong, faithful, confident leaders to step in there and to shake it up for our Lord Jesus Christ. This is his conference. This is his church, and he ought to take charge. Now, one of the things that I noticed in interviewing Bishop Coffey, who gave me a great interview, Bishop Strickland gave me a great interview as well. And Bishop Coffey mentioned that, this is how the speakers are decided within the USCCB. Ultimately, it's the decision of the head of the USCCB. And so that to me is something that practically is something to look at and say, okay, how can we get a pro-life vote to actually speak to this conference? There were all kinds of speeches about many different issues, important things, again, but they all pale in comparison to the daily mass murder that's going on. There is not a pro-life voice that speaks to the body of bishops about the reality of what's going on. That voice does not exist currently, at least within these last meetings. So I would hope that this new leader would have a pro-life vote in there advocating for the poorest of the poor and helping to prick the consciences of these bishops. That would be a good move. And all these questions that you bring up about abuse and their association with various cover-ups and things like that. What did they know? When did they know it? All of that. Those are all fair questions that ought to be asked and they ought to answer. And if I can say one thing about what you mentioned about marriage and the so-called same-sex marriage push that is going on politically in both parties within the U.S., I think oftentimes these bishops, from what I'm noticing, they're taking their cues from the Vatican. What did we see right before the USCCB meeting? It was Father James Martin meeting with Pope Francis, and for a 15-minute meeting, I think, or maybe longer, I don't recall, but that's a sign to these bishops. They don't release what's said, but just the very nature of him continuing to receive Father Martin, who is really the ringleader of trying to advocate for this whole so-called LGBTQ push within the church, which is a disordered way of looking at the identity of people and saying this is their very identity. And it is working because now the USCCB, I noticed they're using that language. They're saying LGBTQ. To even use that language is wrong. And this is something that Father Martin has pushed as his number one thing, to get them to use that language. And it's working. And so we've seen that. We also saw it with Pope Francis meeting with Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, and then the bishops back down and enforcing Canon 915 as a body, or even discussing it. So major problems going on. And again, that's another thing that is part of the tone of the USCCB. No criticism at all of anything going wrong at the Vatican with Pope Francis doing anything wrong. Everybody acts like he is perfect, and everything he does is 100% on the mark. No sense of any critical eye, which is just being honest. And so it's very sad to see that. But again, we've got to encourage our bishops to stand up even among one another and to witness to the truth in authentic love.
We're down to the wire here. You have just maybe 20 seconds left. What do you think of, actually, where that music means we're out of time. We're going to have you back. I'd like to get your follow-up on Bishop Burbidge as the pro-life chair, but we are out of time. Thank you, Jim Havens, for joining us, host of The Simple Truth, 4 p.m. Eastern, across the Station of the Cross, Monday through Friday. Jim, God bless you. God love you. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
God bless you, Joe. Happy Thanksgiving.
All right after the break, we have more breaking news and stories. Then Eric Sammons joins us from Crisis Magazine. Don't go anywhere. Be right back.
This is Dale Ahlquist with a Chesterton Minute. Have you ever noticed that most people think that rules apply to others but not to themselves? They always consider themselves to be the exception. But what ends up happening is that everybody is an exception, and so the rules don't apply to anybody. The result is something worse than chaos. It's a loss of all the categories of respect and justice. G.K. Chesterton says that when the exception has become the rule, that is the worst of all possible tyrannies. When the cardinal, formerly known as Ratzinger, gave his final homily before the papal conclave, he said, "We are living under the tyranny of relativism." What is relativism? It's when there are no rules, only exceptions. The man about to become Pope was echoing Chesterton exactly. Want more than a minute? Chesterton.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're currently cruising at 39,000 feet. We'll turn that seatbelt sign off for you and let you move about the cabin. Looks like we're about 2 hours and 10 minutes from landing. Plenty of time for you to pray for vocations to the priesthood.
Wouldn't it be great if everyone prayed daily for priestly vocations? Why not start today? A friendly suggestion from Guadalupe Radio Network.
Welcome back to Catholic Drive Time, keeping you informed and inspired. And now, here's a couple more headlines for you. Sky News reports, delivery driver forced at gunpoint to take suspicious device to police station in Londonderry, formerly known as Derry. A group of armed men placed the object in the man's car in Currynairn in Ireland, Londonderry, and forced him to complete a 10-minute journey before abandoning the grey Ford Mondeo outside of the Waterside police station. The driver was able to raise the alarm, and the police service of Northern Ireland said a public safety operation was immediately enforced. Intermittent violence has plagued Northern Ireland since the Good Friday Agreement was signed in 1998, including the murder of Lyra McKee during a riot in Derry in 2019. Breitbart reports, FTX boss and Democrat superdonor Sam Bankman-Fried cashed out $300 million during funding spree. The Wall Street Journal reports that during a funding round that raised $420 million for the cryptocurrency exchange FTX, almost 3/4 of the money went directly to the founder and Democrat superdonor Sam Bankman-Fried. Now Bankman-Fried's business dealings are under scrutiny as part of the bankruptcy of FTX and his investment firm, Alameda Research. FTX, which allegedly lent customer funds to Alameda, is now facing a funding gap of approximately $8 billion, according to FTX's new CEO, John Ray. And those were your headline news this morning. God love you.
Praise be to God in all things. Thank you, Rudy, for keeping us up to date. Very grateful to you. FTX, you mentioned that a second ago.
Yeah.
Kind of a big deal, I guess. Some $50 billion worth of people's money. Poof. See you later. Goodbye. $50 billion.
And this has been the trend, too. I mean, you're looking at cryptos like Bitcoin completely crashed. It was at a peak of $68,000 per share, and now it's closer to $20,000.
Yeah, not even 20. Yeah. Very, very interesting. I looked at crypto once very briefly, and I thought, no thanks, passing this. And boy, I'm glad I didn't put much into that.
Yeah.
But I know somebody who has, very invested, and probably has a different opinion on all this. Eric Sammons joins us, editor-in-chief of Crisis Magazine. Good morning to you, Eric.
Good morning, Joe. How are you?
Praise be to God, I am alive, and that counts. How are you?
Very good. I'm doing great.
Now, you wrote a book in 2015 on crypto, so you do have an invested, to use the pun, you have an invested opinion on all of this. What is your take on the FTX crash?
Well, honestly, I think whenever anybody in the cryptocurrency industry tries to act like the regular banking and finance industry, usually things go poorly. It's the whole problem is that FTX. I mean, honestly, FTX kind of has the same motto as the Federal Reserve, in my opinion. It created money out of nothing. I mean, that's the key. A lot of people don't understand is that, and a lot of crypto companies do this, and it's awful, is they create their own tokens, their own cryptocurrency, and theirs was FTT, I think it was called. And that's how they raise money, because everybody says, hey, let's get in on this. And so basically they're creating money out of nothing. And so then they're highly leveraged. They loan out tons of this token, this FTT token, I mean, billions and billions of dollars are worth. Well, then all of a sudden, if everybody decides, hey, I'm not quite sure I believe in this token anymore, I want to cash mine out. Well, if enough people do that, you have a classic bank run. It's the same thing that would happen in the regular banking world. If everybody went to the bank and said, I want my money, for people who know that the bank doesn't actually have your money in their safe or anything like that. And so that's what happened here. The money just didn't exist. And so it went under. It was amazing how quickly it happened because FTX is, I think, the second or third biggest exchange in the world. And the largest exchange, Binance, the guy who runs that, he basically tweeted something that questioned their FTX's stability, and that caused the bank run, and it was over. Yeah. And so ultimately, the whole thing was a Ponzi scheme. It was just a matter of Sam Bankman-Fried. He created these tokens out of nothing. He loaned them out, and once everybody said, no, we don't think this is worth anything, it wasn't worth anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I found it very fascinating because he had formed a financial investment firm and recruited all of his buddies from MIT, apparently very notorious for some immoral sexual practices amongst the members that ran that company. And then he created the FTX exchange, and he was using illegally his customers' money without their permission to transfer it back to his investment firm to trade on that, and losing it and covering that up as well. And then, of course, we all know now he was the second largest donor to the Biden administration's run for presidency in 2020, second only to Bloomberg. But apparently he also, under one of his other executives, gave $23 million to Republican campaigns, too, seemingly playing both sides, hedging his bets. And a lot of people are wondering today whether or not, if in fact he's ever able to be taken from the Bahamas back to the United States to be questioned, to be investigated, and or stand trial for fraud and other criminal activities, whether or not those political favors will come to his aid. Do you see anything in that? Do you think he'll ever stand trial? Will justice be had in this case ever?
I mean, he might be Epsteined, but I think ultimately, I don't think justice will really happen, because I think what will happen is that he's got powerful friends who will look bad if he ends up everything gets revealed, because I think he, as you said, he played both sides of the aisle. I think he was himself a leftist who very much supported most of the leftist causes. But of course, like a smart businessman, he knows you give to both sides of the aisle in Washington to help yourself out. And he was a big proponent of heavy regulation of the crypto world. That's actually why the Binance guy, I think, went after him, because he disagreed with that. And just a real quick note is that I think that's what's going to happen is they're just going to try to regulate the crypto industry to death. And I don't think regulation is the type of regulation they would do is not going to solve it. I mean, think about, for the people who might remember, Bernie Madoff. He ran a pyramid scheme for years. He had the SEC looking into him multiple times, saying everything was fine here. And that was a highly regulated industry, yet he got away with it for years before he finally, went under. So regulation is just a matter of Washington being able to enrich itself, hurting the little guy. And so I think ultimately that's probably what will happen is there'll just be the regulation will hurt the little guy, and the really high up people, nothing will happen to them.
I think the fall of FTX is the rise of CBDC, something you spoke of in a recent podcast as well, and I've seen a lot of commentary on this subject. And I think I have to agree with you. In your podcast, you said what scares you most is, nuclear war, and then the rise of CBDCs. Explain to us what CBDCs are and why we should be concerned.
Okay, first, just to make sure it's clear, cryptocurrency, such as Bitcoin, is decentralized, meaning it's basically just a protocol on the internet that people can send value to each other without any third party. So I can send Bitcoin to Adrian, and he can send it to me, and nobody else is involved in it. We can have our own wallets, and we're just taken care of. A CBDC takes the technology under decentralized cryptocurrencies, the blockchain technology under it. But what it does, instead of having it be something that the whole world, it's open source, the whole world can run and can see and can know that it doesn't have any bugs in it, doesn't have any hacks, anything like that. It's run by a central bank, the central bank digital currency. And so what happens is the technology is quite powerful. If you have a single organization running it, they can turn it on and off. It's programmable money. Ultimately. So, for example, I decide, hey, I want to go down the street and go buy a handgun. Well, maybe Washington, the central bank, doesn't want me to buy a handgun. Maybe I've been flagged because of something I said on Twitter. Well, then I get there, I try to pay with my CBDC, and it just won't allow it because you can program it to say this person can't spend it here. Likewise, I've heard they've even talked about, in the most extreme Keynesian economics possible, the idea that you have to spend your money in a certain time period. So, for example, you get your paycheck today, and it basically will expire. So if you don't spend it within 3 months, let's say, then you lose it, because the idea is stimulate the economy and things like that. So hopefully listeners can tell how dangerous that is, because if we think our government controls a lot of things we do now, with CBDCs, they literally can control your life, because if you can't spend money, or if you're controlled where you spend money, I mean, you've lost your freedom completely.
And it necessarily that would have to include a social credit score.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. Because how are they going to gauge whether or not you're worthy to spend money? Because, like I mentioned, buying a handgun, but it could be, just to use an extreme example recently was, of course, Alex Jones was taken off of Twitter, and Elon Musk just yesterday, I think, said he's not bringing him back. And I've honestly never even listened to Alex Jones. I know a lot of people have strong opinions about him. But the point is they could mark him and say, okay, you just can't use the CBDC. You can't buy food. You can't buy anything. And obviously, we've known from the past few years, if you allow for an extreme example like Alex Jones, and it runs down to somebody who just says on Twitter, a man can't become a woman, and now your social credit score goes under, and you can't spend your CBDC money. And so that's the extreme that frankly terrifies me, because it's the perfect Orwellian world.
Yeah, and we're already seeing the news that the Fed is experimenting with a digital currency right now, which means it's going to roll out to everyone else. What do you think, a year?
I mean, I always trust in the incompetence of government, so hopefully it'll take longer than that, because there is some technical, difficulties when doing it. But I do think within the next year, we'll definitely see it rolled out in some country on at least a limited basis, where they're going to test it out and see how it goes. I'm hoping there's enough resistance to it, and let's pause there. Sure.
We'll pick up the resistance right after the quick break. We're with Eric Sammons, editor-in-chief of Crisis Magazine. Why FTX's fall should matter to you and to me, even if you're not into crypto. All of that and more coming up right after the quick break.
I've been listening to Guadalupe Radio for a couple years now, and I think it was a bumper sticker I saw in somebody's car one time, and it's a radio station that I don't have to be concerned about or worried about. When the kids and I are driving, I don't have to worry about inappropriate items. It's just the opposite. It's educational. I've learned so many different topics and on different subjects that I couldn't believe, being a Catholic and being baptized as a child. There's so many things I didn't know, and now in these past couple of years that I've been listening in, I've learned so much.
Hello, this is Steve Gleason with your 1-minute tool for Catholic evangelism. Here's the question for your non-Catholic friend. If Jesus brought 2 of the greatest Old Testament saints to meet with 3 of the greatest New Testament saints at the Mount of Transfiguration, can you say with any assurance that they were not alive, aware, and able to communicate? So here's your 3 best friendship tools for Catholic evangelism. Number 1, the Bible. Luke 9 says, quote, 2 men, Moses and Elijah, appeared in glorious splendor talking with Jesus. Did you catch that? They were talking with Jesus. That means they have cognitive capability. Secondly, heavenly friends. Those in heaven long for your prayer requests. Their intercession far exceeds your best friend's prayers here on earth. Sorry to say that. And thirdly, a pesky comeback. Well, Oral Roberts University has the prayer tower. TBN has a prayer department. Your home church probably has a prayer hotline. Well, guess what? Heaven has on-demand, pure, unselfish prayer warriors known as the Great Cloud of Witnesses. They're waiting on you.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to Catholic Drive Time, keeping you informed and inspired. I'm your host, Joe McClain. So good to be on with you. Attorney Brent Haynes is going to be our guest at the top of the next hour. We're going to be talking about how Disney's CEO has been fired. They brought back the other guy, the old guy, the guy who just retired and helped to nurture this new guy. So we're going to be talking about what that means. And is it a case of get woke, go broke? We're going to talk to Brent Haynes. Please join us at the top of the next hour if you can. Eric Sammons is our guest right now, editor-in-chief of Crisis Magazine, talking about the fall of FTX, the rise of CBDCs and why that matters. Eric, welcome back to the program. We left off with resistance and whether or not you think we can resist this. We talked about a timeline of about a year with the Fed experimenting with a digital currency. In China, they had some resistance, but they have their ways of overcoming that resistance by incentivizing people to use this, picking the winners, cutting the losers. Don't you think we're going to see that here? Is resistance futile?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's always, I think people long for freedom, and there will be definitely, especially in this country, I think in other cultures, there's a more apt ability to just go along with whatever government kind of tells you to do, to trust them. And I don't think we have that here in America, at least. So I do think there is the possibility of resistance. And I think this might sound a bit counterintuitive to some people who are listening, but I think one of the best resistances to CBDCs is digitalized cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, because I think it allows us to have alternative economies. And I think, honestly, Catholics should be working on alternative economies already. And what I mean by that is basically buying and selling things with like-minded people outside of your Amazons, outside of the banks even. So, for example, a lot of places, local communities, they trade services, they trade goods. Maybe, for example, you grow something in your farm, somebody else maybe has cattle, and so you trade things based upon that. I think these are ways that we get outside the system, and I think we should be building those up now so that we have things in place. And I think when it comes to online interactions and things like that, that's where something like cryptocurrency really comes into effect, something like Bitcoin, because it's not bound. It can't be controlled by the government. And also, I think, honestly, I know cryptocurrency, Bitcoin has gone way down since its high about a year or so ago, but it's also gone very up since its beginning. I mean, I've been involved since 2013. I think when I first started, it was about $800. When I wrote that book in 2015, it was $300. So $16,000 still sounds like a lot to me, even though it's obviously off the high. But if you think about it, your US dollar is worth about 87 cents now from what it was worth just 2 years ago. I mean, it's gone down in great value just from the inflation, the great inflation. And it always goes down. That's intended to go down over time, the value. And so it harms savers, where something like cryptocurrency and also precious metals, gold, silver, things like that, they also help reward savers as well. I think those are more solid, hard money that I think we should trust in and try to get out of the system, so to speak.
Now, Mr. Sammons, you kind of nailed a point earlier before the break, and it was the comparison between the Federal Reserve and these digital currencies that we've been talking about. FTX, for example, that exchange and the coin that they created, it's my understanding that those weren't mined, right? So they didn't have any value. Is that correct?
That's a great question. Yeah, and for people who don't understand, there's different ways you can create a cryptocurrency, and one of them is called mining. It's proof of work, and the idea is people actually have to have their computers do things. They have to pay money to get their computer and pay a good amount of money for their computers to be able to mine new Bitcoin. So you can't just create Bitcoin out of nothing. You actually have to pay money and energy costs and like that to make it happen. And there's other ways that you can do that you can do mining as well, proof of stake, things like that. But the point is that there's some work involved. But something like FTT, which is the token, I call it a token when it's not mined usually, although people have different definitions. that FTX created, it just was created out of nothing. They just generated, so they could create as many as they wanted to, just like the Federal Reserve basically can create as much money as they, dollars as they want to. And so it has no worth really because they could just create more. It's just a matter of what people were trading it for. So like I said before, if somebody decides, hey, I want to trade mine in, a bunch of people say that, then it becomes worthless real quick. And honestly, the same thing can happen to the US dollar. We've seen this happen in many countries in the past where inflation kicks in and the people decide this is worthless. And all of a sudden you see those pictures of people with tons of the current paper currency in their wheelbarrows going to just get a loaf of bread. Right. To think that can't happen here is just, it's ignoring history and what has always happened to fiat currency.
Yeah, that's a huge concern for me. And the whole concern is, I mean, yeah, you're talking about that. I'm thinking of people who are putting up wallpaper with their money because they literally had it was worth more as wallpaper than it was as money. But the thing that concerns me is when you were talking a second ago about the barter system and these kind of other alternatives, is that if a large number of people, let's just say millions of people in America, hop onto the Bitcoin and start using that as a currency, millions of people is like a drop in a bucket in terms of society. And that if I have a Bitcoin and I'm trying to, or some Bitcoin and try to barter with someone with that, they may not accept it. They may be like, I have no idea how to even process that. And then whenever it goes to other things, you know, if you have chickens and eggs and people are bartering that way, well then yeah, that's easy. I give you 5 eggs, I give you a loaf of bread, so on and so forth. But when you're in the business like us here, or you with Crisis Magazine and things like that, it's like I give you my digital copy of my article, and you give me 4 eggs. Like, how does that going to work exactly with the monetary system the way it is? And like how you're saying about the U.S. monetary system going to be creating like a U.S. digital coin or something like that.
I think a few things. First of all, I just want to say Crisis Magazine does accept cryptocurrencies for donations. Go to our website now. But I think what happens is I think it grows organically, and I think history has shown that the strongest money always ends up winning. Because what will happen is in the CBDC model, that eventually will become so constrictive. More and more people realize this isn't working. I can't do this because I can't just go and buy what I want to buy. I'm being told what to buy by the elites. And so they're going to be looking for alternatives. Right now, for example, if I tried to pay somebody in Bitcoin, there's a really good chance they don't accept it. They don't know what to do. But I think over time, alternatives just naturally pop up where you say, okay, I need something other than the CBDCs. Because remember, CBDCs, the point of it would be to replace dollars. It would be replace paper currency. So when you have a situation where you want to buy something and you can't use your CBDC to buy it because of whatever reason, either you're on a list or the item you're buying is on a list, you're going to find something. You're going to be like, I got to find some way to do it. And so I think what would happen is certain things would grow. Now, what would be the medium of exchange? That's still debatable right now. I personally think Bitcoin is probably it, because right now it's the one that is most like gold, which is the longest lasting and most secure money there is. But it's easier in our digital world. Mm-hmm. So people, for example, Crisis does not accept gold. Although if you want to send it to me, go ahead. But because how do you process it? Do you mail it? I mean, what do you do? And you can't divide up as easily. Whereas
and you pay
you could send me a $5 donation in Bitcoin.
And you pay a hefty tax in order to convert that gold or silver or whatever into cash, for instance.
Right, exactly. So I think, honestly, it would organically grow up. I can't predict what it will look like in 5 years, but I do think as CBDCs rise and are used more, I do think these alternative economies will grow. And there already exists. I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, you see it in the existing already, and I think they'll separate themselves more and more from the fiat system. Like there's Gab Pay, for example, and that's good. And it's a way that you can get around like PayPal's problems, things like that. But ultimately still use the banks. And the banks are going to be told you have to go to CBDCs at some point.
Yeah, and ESGs as well. We've been talking about that on this program, where they go back and look at your investment history. They go back and look at your social history. And they're like, yeah, we don't want to give you that mortgage for that house that you really want to buy because you're not our kind of people. You haven't invested enough into the environment and or into LGBTQ rights or or what have you. It seems like we are headed for a bleak world where buying and selling gets highly regulated. It seems like we read about that somewhere.
Maybe you might need some kind of
scripture
to try to buy and sell, something like that. I don't know.
You know what would be horrible is if some fancy rich billionaire who is outspoken and wants to go to Mars wants to implant chips in your head, and then you just use your CBDCs through his implanted chip.
We call it a Neuralink if we want.
I mean, we're kidding tongue-in-cheek here, but at the same time, these are all real things, are they not, Eric?
They are, and I do think that there's real dangers, as I've said before, and you mentioned earlier. It's one of my great kind of fears for our culture, for our society in the near term is CBDCs, the rise of CBDCs. But like I was telling Adrian, I do think that there's hope in the sense that more and more people are building alternative economies, and that would be my recommendation to Catholics: is really build communities, because it's communities that are the basis of alternative economies. Because there's trust involved. There's always trust involved whenever value is exchanged. That I trust that what you're giving me is worth something, and you trust what I'm giving you is worth something, and we can have that exchange. And so for a long time, we've trusted the Federal Reserve. We've trusted the government that this money is worth something. But I think as they go more into the woke ideology and things like that, I think that trust is broken. And so build communities. And you know, because yes, we'll always be doing online shopping, things like that, but I think it's good if you have a community nearby where you can do a lot of this, especially food. That's the big one, because you can grow some food wherever you are. You can trade it with others who do that. You can learn things in community. So I think that would be my big recommendation: is the response to the rise of CBDCs and things like this would be to really engage in community, build a good Catholic community where you have trusted people and you can exchange goods.
We're down to just about a minute now with Eric Sammons, editor-in-chief of Crisis Magazine, crisismagazine.com. 40 years you're celebrating now. You talk about taking donations in crypto here. Do you think the Bitcoin is going to go back up, bounce back up to the $40,000 plus mark it's at? And it's less than 16 right now. What do you see the future of crypto?
I do. I think a lot. There's thousands of cryptocurrencies, and I don't really have faith in about 99.9% of them, because they're just somebody trying something, and maybe one will hit or something like that. But I think Bitcoin's a little different. It stands out because it was the original, and it has nobody really running it. There's no one person that if they went down. A lot of the cryptocurrencies, if one person goes down, it goes down. That's what happened to FTT. Bitcoin's not like that. I've always told people, and I don't give investment advice, make sure that's clear, but that Bitcoin over the long term does go up in value, but it could be 5 years. You could buy it today and it might not be worth more than you buy it for today in 5 years. So definitely don't look at it as some get-rich-quick scheme.
All right. You heard it here. Eric Sammons, editor-in-chief, Crisis Magazine, crisismagazine.com. Thank you for your time. We're always so grateful to have you on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
God bless you, Eric. All right, that's going to do it for hour number 1 of Catholic Drive Time. If you can join us in the second hour, Brent is going to be on. We're going to talk about Disney, what's going on with them, plus our game show, the after show, and so much more. Hang out with us online at grnonline.com/CDT. God bless you. God love you. We'll see you then.
Catholic radio was there for me when I needed it. Even though I didn't think I needed it, it was there for me. I want everybody to know that I'm giving, not so that I can sit there and say that I gave to GRN for any other reason but this. I want that radio station to be there for anyone else who needs it also. They might not think they need it, but it's going to be there for them, whether it's in the future, whether it's right now. I want that radio station to always be there for them, just like it was there for me.
The Guadalupe Radio Network. Radio for your soul.
This is a Messy Family Minute with Mike and Alicia Hernon. Sometimes it can seem that our family life is humdrum, monotonous, and insignificant. But Christ began his public ministry at the wedding at Cana. When we read this account in the gospel, we're reminded that our marriage, our ordinary family life, is important to God.
Our Lord and Our Lady love our families, and they are present with us. They desire to change what is ordinary into the extraordinary. The Lord can take our simple and everyday tasks and make them holy.
Like the servants at the wedding at Cana, we need to notice when we run out of wine, when we run out of joy, when we run out of love. It is then that we turn to Our Lady and ask for her help. She can bring Christ into our lives, our ordinary water, and transform it into wine.
And when we invite Christ into our lives to transform us, He creates the best wine of all. For more advice, ideas, and encouragement, visit us at messyfamilyproject.org.
Hey, Donnie, who was the first pope to whom Jesus said, "You are the rock upon which I will build my church"?
St. Peter.
And who is the current pope?
Pope Francis.
As parents, we're the primary educators of our Catholic faith to our children. And if you don't know your Catholic faith as well as you should, that's okay. Just tune in daily to the Guadalupe Radio Network by logging online to grnonline.com. The Guadalupe Radio Network. Listen, learn, love, and pass it on.
Are you on the CDT Insider email list? Hi, Joe McLean here. And every week I send you cool stuff straight to your inbox, goodies that you're not going to want to miss. Go to grnonline.com/CDT and get signed up today. Be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back. Catholic Drive Time, keeping you informed and inspired. I'm your host, Joe McLean. So good to be on with you. Praise be to God. Do you invest in crypto? I'm just curious. I'd love to know. If you want to comment directly, you can always do so on one of the live video streams. You can interact. You go to grnonline.com/CDT. You can find all the links. You can actually watch the show live right there. And you can find links to the live video feeds, and you can comment. Let us know.
By the way, we do have a brand new coin we're launching.
We do.
It's called CDT coin. If you'd like to buy into it,
you don't need to mine it. It's a
token.
It's what's it worth?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's about $20 a coin.
Is that all?
We'll send $20.
$20
we'll send you a coin. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, guys.
It's fake news.
I
don't
have
believe him.
Every single penny of my life savings, all in on Dogecoin.
What? You're kidding. Dogecoin's down 2.86% apparently right now.
Yeah, to like negative 15 cents.
Yeah.
What about Shiba coin?
Shiba, I have that at that's so infinitesimally small. I don't even know what number that is. It's just like
zero zero zero
so many zeros before there's
zero zero one.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty far down there. So
that's pretty bad.
It's not even registering over the past year. It's like it's super crashed.
Back in the day, I did make a couple bucks off of the former President Trump's social media. What do they call platform? What is it? Truth Social. Truth Social. When it first launched, they opened it up and you could invest in it. I made a pretty penny there.
Did you? You retired now, or what's the deal?
No. I lost it all.
You lost it.
I lost it all on some bad financial advice.
You took it on the chin.
Well, a friend said, invest in this other thing, and I did, and I lost all my money.
Oh man.
Yeah. I actually mind.
I'm so stingy with my money.
And
I hate investing in things that I.
That's why you only invest the money that you're willing and able to lose.
Right.
Don't invest everything that you have.
Like gambling.
Yeah, well, essentially, yes.
I actually did mine some Bitcoin.
Really?
With my computer at home. I thought, let's see. I just was experimenting and wanting to know about this whole thing. So I set my computer up to join a collective, a hive of other computers that were mining, and I got a cut of the deal. And I let it run for like a solid week. I can't remember how. I think I ended up with like $70 worth of Bitcoin.
Really?
You know, so not even close to a full coin.
No.
Because at the time, I think a coin was like $40-some thousand.
Wow.
Oh. So it was like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. But I took that, and then I'm like, okay, what are these other coins? And I looked around, and I did find it fascinating in the process to learn that some coins actually have like practical, real uses.
Oh, right.
They're not just sort of Dogecoin like fanciful sort of fake stuff.
Yeah.
The library crypto is an example. It's you can exchange in it, but don't. It's pointless. But it's actually used as a decentralized method to replace YouTube as a video distribution platform, and they just use the crypto-like platform to make that decentralized.
Yeah,
so
my biggest
fascinating.
thing with the whole thing about like, I'm never going to encourage people, go put your money into cryptocurrency. My whole thing about it, though, whenever people start saying, like, oh, this is the worst thing ever, I'm like, is it really that different from the U.S. dollar? We're just printing money. The money's not backed by anything.
The Fed gets to decide the value.
The Fed gets to decide the value.
Right.
And the only difference, the main difference, and it is an important difference, the main difference is the U.S. currency is backed by the U.S. government, meaning, like, if you...
What they say, but not gold.
But they have the guns,
Yeah.
is what I mean. It's backed by U.S. guns.
Oh, that reminds me. Thanks for saying that, because I meant to bring this up with Eric, and I didn't. One of the downsides to a CBDC, which is a centralized...
It's not weed.
...digital currency, it's like the government's version of crypto, but they get to decide what its value is. They control it, as Eric made point to say. If they want to lock you out of society, a click of a mouse, boom, you're out. It's that easy with a CBDC. But the other thing is that one of the downsides is right now, the United States and other Western countries have the power of sanctions. So if we don't like Iran enriching uranium, which, by the way, they're at 90% right now, could have nuclear weapons or a dirty bomb, let's just say. If we didn't like that, well, we could heavily sanction them and try to get them back in line. It's a way to say, it's a punishment to say, listen, get in line. Stop with this crazy behavior of yours. With the rise of CBDCs, they no longer have that power. They will not be able to sanction other countries in the way we have traditionally sanctioned them because of the way that the U.S. dollar is used on the global market to buy and sell energy, for instance. So our sanctioning power becomes drastically limited, which means if you don't have the ability to peacefully punish wayward countries, then guess what you're going to get? You're going to get war. So more war, more death, more destruction, more chaos, more division is going to be one of the downsides of the rise of CBDC. So it's kind of a very serious topic on many levels.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge fan at all of libertarians. I think libertarianism is a bad thing ultimately because it's licentiousness over everything else. But however, the one thing that I do like about libertarians is this huge push by Ron Paul and other libertarians to get us back on the gold standard. Oh, yeah. Because I think the gold standard is, at least the money is backed by something, and it's a real thing. Whereas now, I mean, it's just so immoral, just on a morality perspective, not to mention the economic and practical perspective, but from a moral perspective, it's usury, it's destruction of your value, it's stealing from people by taking that away.
All right. Well, speaking of morals, let's talk about Disney. Let's transition to Disney here. Joining us now by phone is our good friend, Brent Haynes, attorney, Catholic speaker, and pro-life warrior. Good morning to you, Brent Haynes.
Good morning, Joe.
Big story over the weekend. Disney fires its CEO, a guy who was mentored. Bob Chapek was mentored by the former guy, and the former guy, Bob Iger, is back. So what's going on at Disney?
Well, Disney was riding high. They were high on their high horse just a while ago, weren't they, Joe? Trying to tell the people of Florida how their children should be educated, interfering with
not just Florida,
governmental democratic.
The whole world.
Well, not just Florida, but they attacked just so the people who have maybe had better things to do than follow this story can be clued in. You know, Florida passed the Parental Rights and Education Bill, which all it said was you basically can't have sex education for children in kindergarten through third grade.
Duh.
Of course, the progressive lobby, the same people who are behind drag show story hours for children, they came out and called it the Don't Say Gay bill. Strangely enough, they attacked it as an attack on free speech. You know, there's the pot calling the kettle black. But they came out, they attacked, and the woke employees at Disney provoked or prompted or encouraged their management, including the CEO, of course, to actually get involved in this debate. Now, Disney, of course, is an entertainment company. It's supposed to be the Magic Kingdom, right?
Right.
It's supposed to be where families go. This is where families are supposed to take their children to see Mickey Mouse. And they got involved in this debate. Now, you know, this is the state of Florida, the people of Florida acting through their elected citizens, through the legislative democratic process, enacting a law according to their judgment. And look, there are going to be a lot of laws that you and I disagree with, but the legislature enacts their laws. And it's one thing if the individual employees object, or if the company wants to object because it's a matter of corporate policy or something. But here, Disney really went after Ron DeSantis in the state of Florida. And so, as some people will recall, Ron DeSantis wasn't going to take this laying down. He's, the governor of Florida. And Disney historically had a lot of tax breaks and financial incentives that they got from the government. And that's a whole other issue about governments giving businesses tax breaks to attract jobs. Usually that's the reason they do it. So Disney took a hit on that. But the other thing that's happening here that's important for our listeners is there was just a general backlash among people. You, for example, have had guests on your radio program, on this very radio program, talking about how woke some of Disney's programming is. Mm-hmm. You know, the kiss they have, between gay characters in shows for children. Their producers of their programs have bragged about how they can incorporate LGBTQ themes into their programs. And this started to get traction. People started writing about it. And, lo and behold, now it's not just because conservatives and people who believe in traditional family values have been boycotting. It's not as if there was some massive boycott. This is a victory for, effective social action through a boycott. But there is some of that. Combined with the economic downturn, combined with the reaction by the state of Florida, which said, you're not going to shove us around, Disney stock took a nosedive and went down 40%.
Yeah.
The stock market's been up and down a lot in the last couple of years. But overall, in the last year, the stock market has been up, Joe, and yet Disney stock was down 40%, even as the economy was reopening, and you would expect people to be traveling to Disney.
Right, and their film, empire has not fared as well either. Of course, the Buzz Lightyear film flopped because of their, shoving it down everybody's throats, which is a tragedy because you got a super high-quality production with good, talented actors, and they have to go down this agenda path. Same thing with the Marvel. What was that Marvel film about the Greek gods? What was that called?
Thor?
No, the one that came out last year.
Ragnarok?
Marvel film about the Greek gods.
I forget what it was called, but it too followed this sort of a woke agenda, and it too did not do well in the box office. And we're seeing this over and over again, but it's not just films, it's also sports. ESPN, we're seeing their commentators take on political opinions more than just sports opinions. And, of course, news. Disney owns, ABC? And we're seeing that as well. So they pretty much have their fingers in a lot of pies around the world: news, sports, entertainment, film, and more. And they have doubled and tripled down. Do you think that getting the old boss back, Bob Iger, are they going to reverse course? Are they going to go back to just trying to be entertainers and not politicians?
Well, that would be ideal. Now,
that's what it is.
So far, we've talked about that. We've talked about the good news that they've gotten rid of this guy who's just gone completely woke. The bad news is that the guy they brought back, Bob Iger, he's the one where all of this started. It was under his watch. So either he allowed this to happen for years and years, or he didn't care, or he encouraged it or he either tolerated it or he encouraged it. So the question is, how far is he going to rein in these people at Disney? My prediction is that they will continue to be woke the way most other corporations are woke, but they will simply tone down the more provocative, attention-getting aspects of it. Maybe they won't go out and just do an in-your-face to the parents of children in Florida or to the governor and government of Florida. But it remains to be seen that if they're going to return to truly family-friendly programming, maybe they reduce the gay kisses in their programming from 3 times a movie to 1. That'd
be one too many for my family.
that's the bad news is that Iger is not a champion of traditional family values.
Right. That's
So we
exactly
don't
what I
know.
was thinking.
And by the way, you mentioned the sports. I mean, Disney owns ESPN,
Right.
and we could do a whole story on ESPN and how reprehensible a sports network has been when it comes to the free speech issue with their people. So their behavior has just been wide-ranging, as you mentioned. They have their fingers in everything.
Yeah,
but
for
still,
sure.
look, let's take our victories where we can get them, Joe. This is a victory. You know, they went too far. Now, hopefully, the people who keep an eye on these things, that really needs to be all of us. The price of liberty is eternal vigilance. But hopefully the people who keep an eye on these things won't just chalk this up as a victory and then walk away.
Yeah, it is interesting to see. Maybe money will speak the loudest message to that company, and they don't want to go broke, so maybe they'll turn around. We'll have to see. I guess that gives us the power as those people who would consume their content to have a big difference in the decision-making process. So maybe we should continue to not support them in hopes that they'll actually get the message. I don't know, but we're just about out of time now with Brent Haynes, our good friend. It's always good to have you on. We're very grateful to you.
Thank you, Joe. I'm always glad to be on.
All right. Praise be to God. Brent, we'll see you next week. Happy Thanksgiving to you, sir. And now it's time to have some fun. We did the serious stuff. Now it's time to have a laugh. We're going to play our game show, Fear and Trembling, and you could win prizes. Today and tomorrow is all that we're going to play. We're giving out the prize tomorrow, so if you want to increase your chance, call right now, 877-757-9424. Phone lines are open, 877-757-9424. First caller gets to play the game right now at 877-757-9424.
Why do Catholics call Mary the Queen of Heaven? Doesn't God rebuke the Israelites in the Old Testament for worshiping a false goddess called the Queen of Heaven? Should we not refer to Mary with that title, therefore, since it's a title of a false god?
In Jeremiah 7, verse 18, God is indeed upset with the Israelites for worshiping a false goddess called the Queen of Heaven. However, just because God rebuked them for worshiping the false Queen of Heaven doesn't mean that we cannot pay honor to the true Queen of Heaven, the Blessed Mother. That type of thinking would lead you to believe that just because people worship a false god that they call God, we therefore should not call the true God by that same name, God, because that's the same name the idolaters use for their God. That is faulty logic, and it makes no sense whatsoever. Again, the fact that there is a false Queen of Heaven does not lead to the conclusion that we worship a false goddess when we call Mary the Queen of Heaven. Just as the fact that there is a false God does not lead to the conclusion that we worship a false God when we call our Father in heaven God. And there is a true Queen of Heaven. We see this quite clearly in Revelation 12, verse 1. And a great portent appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. Let's see. There's a woman. She's in heaven, and she has a crown on her head. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's the cleaning lady. No, it's the true Queen of Heaven, Mary, the mother of the male child who is to rule the nations. We do not worship Mary, we honor her just as Jesus honors her. So there is absolutely nothing wrong from a scriptural point of view in calling Mary the Queen of Heaven and in honoring her just as Jesus honors her. After all, if Jesus is the King, then Mary is truly the Queen Mother of Heaven.
A beacon of truth in a troubled world. This is the Guadalupe Radio Network, radio for your soul.
Welcome to another round of Fear and Trembling, the Catholic trivia game show that helps you work out your salvation by the seat of your pants. It's a 50-50 chance and prizes are involved. Avoid the weeping and gnashing of teeth. Call now to take your shot, 877-757-9424. And now, your host, Joe McClain.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to Catholic Drive Time and Fear and Trembling, the Catholic trivia game show.
What on earth was
secrets and agendas that you're not allowed to tell anybody, okay? Don't. Stop it. I can see you trying to tweet this right now. Don't do that, all right? Keep this between us. But number one, on the down low, we like to teach the faith. We look for teachable moments in the questions where you're going to learn something you didn't know before. Praise be to God. And then, of course, we like to have a laugh. We like to have a good chuckle, and that makes this fun. We enjoy that most. Then we give out prizes, which means it's a winner for everyone because you could learn, you could laugh, and you could win. At least today and tomorrow, because after that, we're off for Thanksgiving. So call back tomorrow if you don't get on today. But here's the kicker, the secret sauce on all of this. The real tricky part is we don't ask our caller the questions. So they don't need to know. They may not know a single correct answer, could still win our game, because instead of asking them, I will ask Adrian and I will ask Rudy. One of them will give us a correct answer. The other will give us an incorrect answer. The caller will then have 15 seconds to make a decision. Whomst do they trust more? And then every correct answer goes into the coffee cup of divine providence to win this week's prize. Rudy, what could they win?
Woo! This week we are going to be sponsoring the prize for you. CDT, your very own CDT. Maybe we're going to give out some CDT coin. No. We're actually putting together a prize pack this week, and it's going to comprise of all kinds of different little things that are going to improve your prayer life. So the winner is going to win that tomorrow. We're drawing it tomorrow, just in case you missed it. We're not here on Thursday. We're not here on Friday. We're going to be off for Thanksgiving. So you have a lot of chances to win.
If you have a chance of 33.33% chance of winning.
Is that right?
That's amazing. Huh. That's like a third. Well, it's amazing. Let's go to the phones. Good morning to you, Annabelle.
Good morning.
Praise be to God, Annabelle. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks be to God.
Where are you calling from?
Frisco.
Frisco, Texas. That's like the Dallas area. Is that correct?
Yeah, a little bit north.
Nice. Now, is
it warm there?
Yeah. What is Frisco best known for, Annabelle?
Well, it's one of the fastest growing cities around here. So.
Really?
Yes.
So don't move there, because who wants more neighbors, right? You got enough already, for crying out loud.
The secret is out. Traffic is horrendous. Don't come.
Yeah, don't come. Spoken like a prophet. All right, Annabelle, where do you go to church?
At St. Francis of Assisi.
I know it well. It's been a long time since I've been there. Right across from the Gaylord Resort and the Great Wolf Lodge Inn.
Oh man!
No, that's in Grapevine.
Oh,
that's in Grapevine,
this is a different St. Francis.
Yeah,
fascinating. Yes. I'm sorry to have crossed the streams there, but St. Francis in Frisco. Then I guess I haven't. I don't know that I've been to that one. If I have, I've totally forgotten. I guess I'll have to. But Annabelle, do you understand the rules? Do you know how this game works?
Yeah, pretty much everybody lies.
Okay. Oh man, the whole world knows the game. Then you know
everybody lies.
Then I don't need to explain to you that I am your only friend in this process.
Don't trust Joe. He's the worst of the liars.
Rudy is not even wearing a tie, let alone a jacket. There's been he's wearing some sort of
quilted gilet,
quilted vested thing, and he's in Texas, not Colorado. So figure that one out. And then Adrian is just sitting down over there. So who knows how this whole thing is going to go, Annabelle? But let me see if we can't get through it together. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
We shall start with Rudy first, as is our custom. Rudy?
Yes.
I did not know there was such a thing, but nonetheless, could you tell me who... Waiting for the music. There we go. Who is the patron saint of Boy Scouts?
Boy Scouts?
Yes, sir.
Well, some might say.
Some.
A fella named George.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. A guy named George.
Just some random guy named George?
Some random guy named George. You know, there's a legend about him slaying a dragon, but...
Okay.
I don't know, man. You see any dragons around? No, I don't think they exist.
So you're saying he's a saint. So St. George.
Yeah, St. George.
Okay. St. George, you're saying, is the patron saint of Boy Scouts. Interesting. Okay. Adrian, however, is clearly the world's foremost expert on scouting.
It's true.
And at least that's what his Twitter profile seems to suggest. Good morning to you, Adrian.
Yes, good morning to you.
Could you tell me who is the patron saint of Boy Scouts?
Well, you know, I actually read an article about Boy Scouts once, though I've never actually been outside.
That is almost, I think it's equivalent.
Yeah, I basically have a PhD in Boy Scouts.
You basically do.
Eagle Scouts ain't got nothing on me. That's all I'm saying is all. So the patron saint of Boy Scouts is actually Saint Longinus.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Is that because of the long johns Boy Scouts will have to wear in cold environments?
No.
I'm seeing a connection there.
It has to do because in the Boy Scouts, you throw spears. At least that's what I read in my article.
So St. George didn't use spear?
No, but he didn't throw them.
I see. Yeah. Maybe he didn't need to throw it because he's man enough to stand his ground. Who knows?
Something like that.
All right, Annabelle, you got options here. Who is the patron saint of Boy Scouts? Is it St. Longinus, as Adrian wants us to believe, or is it St. George, as Rudy suggested? 15 seconds on the clock. Who is right? Who is wrong? Annabelle and Frisco, what say you?
Rudy is right.
Wow, very confident.
Yeah, my son is an Eagle Scout.
Hey.
Man, what are the chances?
No tricking you, Annabelle. That was your perfect question for you then. Congratulations.
I guess that's why they created the Troops of St. George.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense.
St. George. That and Boy Scouts, they have to have some guy with a sword involved. I mean, you can't just have any saint. They have to have swords. All right, St. George is correct. Let's go to the second question. This one's a little more tricky, I'm going to be honest. Adrian, can you tell me?
Yes, I can.
What term is used to denote the three persons of the Trinity being of one and the same substance and essence?
Oh, that's easy, dude.
Oh, okay.
That's very straightforward. Mm-hmm. It's hypostatic.
Hypostatic, you say?
There's a spray for that, you know.
I was going to say that.
Yikes.
Okay, hypostatic.
Hypostatic.
All right. Let's just see what Rudy says. Rudy, could you tell me what term is used to denote the three persons of the Holy Trinity being of one and the same substance and essence?
I love the story of how this came to be.
Oh,
it's
really?
a difference of one letter.
Really?
I believe.
Okay.
Or pronunciation of it. But it's consubstantial.
Consubstantial is your answer for the substance and essence of the Holy Trinity.
That's right. Consubstantial.
Consubstantial. All right. Annabelle, I assume you are a theologian, and you probably have this nailed, but Rudy says consubstantial, whereas Adrian suggests hypostatic. 15 seconds on the clock. Who is right? Who is wrong? Annabelle, what say you?
Oh, man, I've never heard of this, but I think hypostatic, that's for Jesus, human nature and human divine, so, oh, Lord. What did Rudy say again?
Consubstantial.
Go with Rudy.
Okay, Rudy.
Oh!
She would have got it.
Amazing.
She got hypostatic correct.
You did. You were
hypostatic does refer to the union of our Lord's divinity and humanity.
Your hunch was correct, Annabelle. Congratulations. The correct answer is consubstantial, as the term we use to denote the three persons of the Trinity being of one and the same substance and essence. Congratulations. All right, let's go to the third question. This could be the easiest question we've ever asked another human person on the planet. Ever. I don't even know if we should
We break the record every day, apparently.
I mean, but let's just go with it just for fun. Rudy, could you tell me what are the three original languages of the Holy Bible?
All right, so when these events were taking place, it was an ancient time, and that means you need ancient languages. Arabic, Egyptian, and Sanskrit.
Really? Arabic, Egyptian, and Sanskrit are your answers as the three original languages of the Bible?
100%.
Okay. Adrian.
That's my name.
I believe you once walked on the campus of a Catholic university, so you probably know this answer.
It happened once.
What are the three original languages of the Bible, sir?
Oh, yeah, that's easy. It would be Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic.
Interesting. All right, Annabelle, I don't know if you're a biblical scholar or not, but are the three original languages Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek, as Adrian is saying, or is it Egyptian, Arabic, and Sanskrit, as Rudy would like us to believe? 15 seconds on the clock. Who's right, who's wrong? Annabelle, what say you?
This time, Adrian is right.
Just this time. I like how you said
Don't worry, Annabelle.
She's like,
going with Adrian, you're smarter, faster, stronger, younger, more beautiful. All these things happen once you go with Adrian.
I like how you said it, Annabelle.
Trust the science.
Just this one time. Adrian,
I didn't hear it that way. That's not the way I heard it.
Masterful. Perfect score. Annabelle, you're in the cup for 3. You could win. Thanks for playing our game and having a laugh with us today.
Thank you, guys.
God bless you, Annabelle. We're going to put you on hold. Don't go anywhere. That's going to do it for the radio side of our program. If you can join us in the after show, we would love to conversate with you directly. Do you dabble in the cryptos? What do you know? What don't you know? Let us know in the chat box there. We're going to conversate with you directly. You get to decide the conversation. Guess what? Dr. Paul Kengor is live with us tomorrow morning again. Until then, God love you.
Thank you for joining us on Your Catholic Drive Time, where it is our pleasure to keep you informed and inspired.
Join us Monday through Friday at the same time, right here on your favorite Catholic radio station.
Don't forget to connect with us. Just go to facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Again, that's facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Be sure to share more than just us today. Share Jesus with everyone you meet.
Bye now, and God love you.
You guys are talking about the languages, and somebody here said that English wasn't invented then. Look, Alberto, I know you're from England, from Angoland, and you know, the thing is, our Lord used the King James Version Bible. If it was good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for me. That's all I'm saying. Alrighty, God bless you guys. Good morning to you, and thank you very much. Paul says, before I forget to say, I'm thankful for all of the CDT family. Thank you very much. And Sonia says, it's Thanksgiving week. One of the many things I'm thankful for is Catholic Drive Time. Listen, learn, laugh. Thank you very much, Sonia. Thank you, everybody. Y'all are so kind. And Jesus Robles, congratulations to you on your promotion.
Live, laugh, love.
Live, laugh, love. And thank you very much, guys. Sharon says cowbells for Adrian. Yes, that's right. And good luck, Annabelle. Yeah, hopefully the God's will be done when they draw up the names. Gunslinger says, yeah, you can have custom challenge coins be made. Should have some CDT challenge coins for the prizes. Oh, that would be dope.
Hey, what are challenge coins?
Challenge coins are these little coins that you get for doing challenges. And different groups give them out. So you go skydiving. Skydiving groups will have their own challenge coins. The fire department has a challenge coin. The police department has challenge coins, military, things like that. And when you accomplish things or be a part of things, they give you the coins as a symbolic means of something or other. And then you can trade challenge coins, things like that. It became a kind of like a thing. But my dad has a few challenge coins. I don't have any because I'm like, It's kind of weird.
Fascinating.
Do you mean physical coins?
Yeah, the physical coins.
Yeah, I've got some of those from the military.
Yeah. Jay Cook asks, if we had to get a tattoo, what would it be?
I wouldn't.
I personally, my wife hates this. I want to get a classic, like a cholo portrait of my wife on my chest.
Really?
Yikes.
And she says, don't ever do that. I wouldn't want that.
That's
and
really
I just think that is so cool.
Should we get matching St. Constantine tattoos?
You know what I'd get a tattoo of? I'd get a tattoo of a bulldog and a leprechaun riding the bulldog. That's what I'd get. And I get it right on my chest.
That would be super stellar. No one has one of those.
Yeah. I just thought of it. Thought of it on my own. Yeah.
No, sir. Let's make sure that's covered up. Sorry. Yeah, I never showed you it, did I?
Yeah, you did.
I showed it to you? I actually physically showed it to you.
You pulled it down and you showed it.
I don't remember showing it to you. I remember
showed it to me
telling
twice,
you.
Dude. You showed it to me twice.
That's awkward.
Yeah. One time was awkward enough, but you showed it to me a second time.
Like, oh, yikes.
I was like, okay, dude.
Yikes.
Okay.
All right. Ixnay on the atute.
So anyway, I saw this hilarious meme. It was like this young lady getting a tattoo. She goes, "Oh, I'm gonna look so cool," and then it's like fast forward 50 years.
I know,
Grandma, why do you look like that?
Like college is seeing people who get tattoos all over their face, or like cover their arm and their whole body, and you're just like,
or they don't like the tattoo and they just paint their whole arm black.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like, but I get it. When you get a tattoo, your immediate thought is, I want another one. I mean, like,
I want 7.
For whatever reason, tattoos can be addictive.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I never got that. People always say that tattoos are addictive, and that confuses the heck out of me because I hate needles. I've always hated needles. You can ask my mother.
It's worse than just a needle.
Oh, that's
it's
what I'm
a
saying.
needle that scrapes you.
That scrapes you and hits you like a million times.
Yes.
And so, like, I don't even want to get my blood drawn. I don't like shots. I've never liked shots. I've never liked getting my blood drawn. Any of those things. The idea of sitting down and laying there for hours as someone stabs you over and over again sounds like the most unpleasant thing ever.
Totally. But I did it nonetheless.
How old were you when you did it?
Well, I was pretty young. I was in the Marine Corps. I can't remember if it was I think it might have been 1993 when I got my tattoo.
There you go.
I was only 3 years old.
So I was
wasn't even born yet.
probably like 19, 18, 19, something like that.
It was in 1918?
No, stop it. It was like 1993, and I was probably 18 or 19 at the time. And I got the Bulldog, the Marine Corps Bulldog with the University of Notre Dame leprechaun riding him. Yeah. And because I was big into Notre Dame football at the time.
That's great. That's what I wanted.
In the 90s, they were the gold helmets, man. They were baller. They were baller under Coach Lou Holtz, Catholic, by the way.
I can't imagine getting a tattoo of a sports team. Like, so.
Sports ball, let's go.
Yes, but
the Houston Texans right on my chest.
It was the Marine Corps element that made it unique. It was, I remember I met the guy, the tattoo artist, I met him scuba diving. We went to the same scuba diving school. And he had all these tattoos, and I was asking him about it, and he's like, yeah, I own my own studio, and it's not even that far from the base. And I was like, okay, I'm going to stop by. And I told him what I wanted, and he put it all together. It took 3 hours, and I think I paid $300, if I remember correctly.
$300,
which was a ton of money for me at the time.
That's a ton of money now. What on earth?
I mean, that's nothing for tattoos.
What's that index for
tattoos? I
inflation?
guess. Gosh darn it,
man.
So can you like cut that off and sell it for $300?
I might. I just might. I might pass it down as a family heirloom too. We'll have to see.
Gee whiz.
Yeah, I mean, my kids know that I have a tattoo. Obviously, they've seen it, so we've had those conversations about regret and and there's a debate amongst Catholics whether or not they should get tattoos, and I get that. But at the end of the day, I don't recommend them.
Yeah, me neither. I can't get behind the idea that it's mortally sinful or even necessarily sinful at all.
What if they cover their face?
Well, not. What I mean is not necessarily sinful in and of itself.
Yeah. Like a tattoo is not the issue as much as like
the situation.
Yeah,
the
like
particulars.
Seeing people who are covering their bodies and getting horrible tattoos.
Obviously, getting horrible tattoos of like pentagrams or things like that.
How do we feel about
easily considered sinful?
How do we feel about cultural tattoos though? Like people who grew up in New Zealand and get the face tattoos or Polynesian cultures.
No, I mean I think those are bad. I think whenever we came to the New World, there's a lot of practices that people used to do that mutilated their bodies, had those giant mouth gauges, things like that, the neck bracelets, all these things.
Yeah.
And Christianity got rid of those things because it is an affront against the human body.
Yeah.
But I think tattoos in and of themselves, though, I'd be curious because I always see people say that tattoos are sinful, and my mom used to tell me this when I was a kid, and that was a hilarious story. My sister, my older sister, in the grocery store saw this guy with like a bunch of tattoos, and my mom goes, "Mom, that guy's going to hell." In the middle of the grocery store.
Gee, thanks.
And my mom was like, "Yes, sweetie, yes, he is." But yeah, so I used to think that, and then when I was older, I was looking into it. I was trying to find a source for that because I was trying to talk about it with other people.
It depends who you ask anymore.
And it's just people's opinions. There's no actual citation of the church teaching on it. There's no anything. So if anybody can find one for me, I would be happy to change my mind because I don't like tattoos. I just can't find a good argument of why it's bad.
Will address the issue. Maybe Vatican III will.
We're in Vatican III right now.
White Wolf is like, no, I have it right here. Let me find the source.
Please do.
Yeah.
Jay Cook says, I think Brady would look good with one of those neck expanders. Man.
Only women wear those, right?
Yeah.
Only the women, yeah.
Only the women wear those.
I think he was trying to say something about Rudy.
I think he was. Oopsies.
Wow.
Ouch.
Jacob.
Right under the bus.
What are you trying to say, bro?
Yeah, I don't know either.
What are you trying to say?
I just, I wish I had thought that through. But the problem is when you're young, you tend to go along with the crowd. You tend to be very highly influenced by your peer groups. And so smoking was a thing for me, which was
smoking,
a big thing. Everybody smoked practically in the military. And then, of course, the tattoo. And then, of course, the licentious behavior. Very few of my colleagues in the military could resist the peer pressures of horrible choices.
It's a military thing.
And those that did, we made fun of. I mean, no lie. I mean, we did. It was horrible. So hats off to those that can serve in such a toxic environment and stand their ground on an ethical and morality and level. I mean, God love them. They're warriors because they are surrounded by such a toxic environment. What was that? What are you doing about over there?
Here we go. Sharon Felton quotes Leviticus 19:28.
Okay.
But I would argue, okay, so she quoted it. It says here, "You must not put tattoo marking upon yourselves. God gave this command to the nation of Israel." Ooh. Okay, that is true, but what about the law? It was fulfilled in Christ, right?
So you're saying it's okay now to get tattoos?
I'm saying that according to Leviticus, I mean, there was all kinds of food that was unclean.
Yeah,
that has now become.
But that's a specific thing. So the Lord specifically dealt with the uncleanness. He never specifically said anything about tattoos.
True.
Except for, you could say, through inspiration to St. John in the book of Revelation, when the mark of the beast will be placed on the person, which is in a bad negative context.
Don't get the mark of the beast.
So don't get the mark of the beast. That's pretty obvious, but I guess the point I'm trying to make there is the only reference we have in the New Testament to a mark on the body is in a negative sense.
So here's the problem, though, with the Leviticus quote. And I agree.
Oh, by the way, Roman soldiers had tattoos.
Yes. The reason why the Levitical laws were in place was to separate the people of Israel from the unclean nations, the nations that are not holy. And so there was a lot of laws that were put into place that were like, you should not eat of any animal, like this, that, and the other. You should not eat of any of the fruits of this, that, and the other. You should not do any of these things with your hair. And it wasn't a moral. It wasn't moral in terms of it being a part of the natural law. Instead, it was part of the ceremonial law. And therefore, it would have been a sin to do those things because now you're violating what God has commanded you. However,
because there's a liturgical and a religious sense. There's a religious sense here because guess who also got tattoos? Egyptian priests.
Right. And so the idea is to separate you from the pagan nations who were also getting tattoos.
Exactly.
And so the Douay-Rheims translation has it as, you should not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead. Neither shall you make in yourselves any brandings or marks. I am the Lord. And this is interesting because, the idea here is what do you do with people that you own? You brand them, you mark them. And so that was a common practice to tattoo people when you own them, to show that they were your property. And the other process was what Joe just said.
Joe did that to us.
I noticed. I didn't. I refused though. It was optional, Rudy.
What?
I don't know if you knew that. Yeah. No, but like Joe said, the priest would get tattooed of the pagan nations. All these things, the Roman soldiers would get tattoos. Yeah. These kind of things, and so it was a symbol.
Aztec priests were covered in them.
So now the question is okay, what if I want to get a Cairo on my arm? Okay.
Ooh, now you're talking my language.
Now we're talking about things that are Christian symbols.
And then start like a Christian on the surface gun YouTube channel.
Right.
Exactly. Symbol on it.
And wear your altar server cassock to the gun range?
Yes, exactly.
Got it.
And so the other thing is, whenever we talk about Our Lady, for instance, when we talk about Our Lady, we say we are a slave of Our Lady. We brand ourselves with Our Lady. We wear chains for Our Lady. And I've seen many people will tattoo themselves with like a chain to Our Lady, with the Ave Maria. And they're like, well, this is a permanent symbol for me to show that I am not my own anymore. I am branded for Our Lady. Yeah. So we're taking a idea that the Romans had and using it for Our Lady. Now, I don't know if I would not do that. I'm just saying I would not do that unless Our Lady just specifically asked me to do it, then I guess I would. But I wouldn't do it of my own volition. And however, I don't see how it could be sinful. That's my thing. So let's see if anybody has a...
Hey, Peter. Good morning to you, Peter. Thanks for being on with us over on our Telegram group this morning. Damon's there. I see Clarissa over there. Good morning to you, Clarissa. Mike K., our friend, the brick wall. Good morning to you, Mike. I see Tammy over there. Praise be to God. Good morning to everybody. Thanks for being on with us. Peter mentioned there was a new movie coming out this weekend. Apparently has a coming-of-age gay theme with loving acceptance from dad and grandpa. Yeah, of course they do. Strange World is the name. Hard pass for us. Yeah, hard pass for me too, brother. And that's, it's more about desensitizing society on the issue and getting them to accept things as like they're normal.
You know, Joe, I was thinking about something you said the other day.
The bad, good, and the good, bad from Isaiah 20. No,
I remember the other day you talked about how, a lot of parents out there find themselves in the situation where like their kid comes home from college.
Yep.
And they say, Mom, Dad, I'm gay. And then they're like, oh, well, the church says this about this, but obviously it's wrong because my pride and joy, my son, he's gay. That means I want to love them. Yeah, and you want to love them and you accept them in that particular
you want to love them.
Sinful behavior. It's not a sin to be gay. But
we have friends. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
That's right. So I was thinking the other day about college. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the insidious things about college is you send these kids out over there, they become indoctrinated, then they come back. And the parents, because they think, my kid is so smart. They finally got to college. They're making something of themselves. And they come back and they bring back these crazy ideas. They become more and more mainstream among adults. So I think that's another aspect of college as to why college is bad.
You got to be super careful. You just can't send them off so quick like that.
Yeah.
I mean, what their peer groups can make or break them. I mentioned that in the military. It's true. It's true. The military is an extremely toxic environment. It's also incredibly toxic on college campuses, work environments. I was hesitant to let my older son work in fast food as a teenager in high school because I knew the environment would be toxic and he might make poor choices. And he did. He did make a few poor choices, actually. So it was a painful process to go through that. We have friends. I was saying we have friends who have a child who came back gay, and it's been a struggle for them to love their child, to continue to maintain a relationship with their child, and not feel pressured to accept that reality as though it's true. It's not an easy thing. It's hard to be a parent who loves their kid, wants to stay in their kid's life, and maintain the truth. It's not an easy thing, but nonetheless, that's what's required. And so often parents will begin to rationalize and allow that emotion that they're feeling to overrule logic and reason.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part. You got to hold the line when it comes to things that are true, regardless of how we feel about it. Because ultimately, you got to ask yourself, what does it mean to love? What does it mean to love? Love is God, 1 John 4:8. And no greater love has man than to lay down his life for his friends. So God, who is love, died on the cross out of love for mankind. So sacrifice is to love. It is not an emotional experience as much as it is, or even more importantly, it is the fact that you sacrifice for what is good, true, and beautiful. To love someone is to sacrifice, is to maintain truth. It is not to abandon truth because of an emotion. That is not love. So it's a hard reality, but a reality nonetheless.
Jay Koch said he's going to get a tattoo of Leviticus 19:28 on his arm.
If I was going to get a Leviticus citation, I'd get Leviticus 3:16.
All fat belongs to the Lord.
Preach it, brother.
Amen.
Preach it.
Amen. That's why I gained a lot of weight, because I wanted to belong to the Lord.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen. Although the Cairo is very tempting. That's I love the Cairo.
It's not really tempting to me.
Oh, man. Should I get like a big one across the chest right here?
I mean, put it right over here. Did I ever? Your little bulldog be right in the middle of it.
Should I cover my bulldog
with the Cairo?
With the Cairo? Like just a pure black Cairo on top. Did I ever tell you guys once that I stepped out of my house? I love the Cairo. I adopted it as the symbol for my LLC. And when I stepped out of the house once, like 2 years ago, I think it was 2020.
LLC, is that part of the LGBT thing? LLC?
No. Anyway, I walked outside my house like in 2020, and I looked up in the sky right outside my front door.
You look to your left. You look to your right.
There was a Cairo in the sky made of clouds.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding. I got to find the picture.
That's wild.
That's dope.
I was like...
Were you tripping?
Dude, I was texting people. I'm like, you gotta see this. This is so cool.
And then they're like,
Joe sent
I
it
don't
to me,
know.
and I was like, dude, that doesn't really look like one.
I don't know. That looks kind of like a big sheep to me. That one kind of looks like an elephant.
I don't know how quickly I can find this, but if I find it, your mind will be blown about how actually it does look like a Cairo.
White Wolf, that's not true. Pope Pius X had a tattoo.
Really?
He also smoked cigarettes.
Pius X had a tattoo?
No, I'm kidding. He did smoke cigarettes.
I know he did smoke
cigarettes. He would
cigarettes.
have one cigarette a day.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
One? Only one?
Just one.
I find that hard to believe.
You have to keep his testosterone up.
You can just have one.
Can you? I don't know, man. I used to smoke. I would have one at a time.
I don't know,
Not
man.
one a day.
For me, it's like coffee, you know? Like, I can only have one coffee a day. Otherwise, I'm like...
Again, you can't just have one coffee a day. You have one at a time until you drank all the
4
coffee.
gallons.
Okay, here we go.
Wolf
I found
said-
it. I found it. Now it's not going to do it justice. Let me send it to my computer and I'll share my desktop.
Remember that one time, Joe
otherwise you can be like,
showed
I
his
don't
access
see
to his all of his information to his phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Remember that
was
time
hilarious.
I gave you access to my back end and you were
Yeah.
like, oh, this is boring. Joe lives a boring life.
Yeah, and then we hacked into your stuff, and we
and then found boringness still.
Hemp milk.
and took
What
everything,
the-
and stole your
Why
identity.
would you drink hemp milk?
I took your house, stole your deed.
Did you?
Yes.
That's so amazing that you would steal from me like that.
White Wolf said, cite one saint who had a tattoo, or one father or doctor who said you could have a tattoo. I'd ask the inverse. Could you find any who condemned it? Because I really don't know. I don't know any. Catholics should not get tattoos. The church has always discouraged them. Can you cite anything? Like legit. I really, I'm looking for something.
Because it just, like, everybody has an opinion on the matter.
Yeah, but I've never seen any.
Okay, share my desktop.
Sources.
Let's see what it looks like when you share the desktop.
Let's see.
That's not what I'm sharing.
Yeah, it's
where are you?
Send it in the chat.
Bingo!
Oh, okay,
Here, look.
Where is it?
Look. Now watch. Follow my cursor now,
Okay.
everybody. This is the.
Okay.
This is the. You see it? And then there's the X right here.
It looks like a line, dude.
Those are chemtrails, man. What are you talking about?
These are chemtrails in the shape of the Cairo, bro. Do you see the X? There's the X. There's
Cairo is a PSYOP, government PSYOP.
Cairo, yo, this is the sign.
That looks like 3 worms.
This is the sign Constantine saw in the sky.
That's not what
at
he
the
saw
Battle
in the sky.
of Milvan Bridge. This is it. This is what he put on all of his standards.
I do see it, though.
Yeah, of course you do.
Hey, by the way, White Wolf, what are chemtrails? What's in them? Why are they so bad?
And why does my airline pilot friend laugh every time I ask him about chemtrails?
Because he's the one perpetrating them.
Because he's inhaled too much of it.
Your body is a temple, Don. I agree. I'm not a fan of tattoos or piercings,
Find love
says
in
Sonia.
your city.
Don't.
Gloria said her son got the Sacred Heart tattoo. Is that okay? Can we get the Sacred Heart tattoo?
So based.
No.
Should I
June,
get my
hello.
wife's portrait tattooed on?
No.
Dude, it's going to be so cool.
No, it really won't.
In Cholo style, nonetheless.
It looks so terrible.
Maybe you should explain for some of our listeners what Cholo style is.
Cholo style? Okay. My uncle was a former Cholo gangbanger. And they have their own sort of aesthetic.
That's where they wear their belt buckle up past their belly button?
Yeah, so the old school Cholo outfit.
We're talking late 70s, early 80s?
Yeah, kind of early 90s as well.
Okay.
They would crease like the living heck out of their
Starch
Dickies.
City.
Starch their Dickies shorts.
Shorts?
Yeah, there would be shorts.
Didn't they wear like khaki pants?
They could wear pants too.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I saw Dickies shorts.
Really?
With a crease down the center, like the sharpest crease you've ever seen in your life.
Wow.
Super high white socks, slides, or Nike Cortezes. And then they would wear large, oversized white shirts. I don't know where they got them from. It was specific. It was a specific brand that they would get them.
Interesting.
They would wear black loke loke shades. I don't know what lokes are, but that's what they call them.
Don't forget the chains hanging from the belt loops.
Sometimes they would wear chains, yeah, and they would have bald heads.
Lou Diamond Phillip played a cholo in a movie.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the was it the gang was that Colors?
T Storm says gray or black fedora. Yep, that's true. And they had very specific tattoos. Now, my uncle happened to have a tattoo of I don't know who it was, but it was this woman on his chest, and I think it had the name of whoever that was, probably some early flame or something. Now, obviously, I don't have any flames. I have my wife, and we're going to be married until we die, until forever. So. Basically, I'm using that as an opportunity to say that it's okay for me to get a portrait of my wife because I think it would be cool.
Oh, yeah. What if, people do that. I've seen people do that. Then they break up, get divorced, and they just cover over the tattoo.
Just don't. I'm not getting divorced.
I'm not sure that is the best solution for staying permanently married. Maybe there's some other options you might consider first.
Here's the alternative. Just don't.
Just
don't.
Just don't do it.
White Wolf, tell me about the chemtrails. I'm waiting.
White Wolf said, just look at Catholic tradition. That's not a citation, dude. That's just read everything.
Just read, yeah.
Damon says, kind of like the homies toys. Oh, man.
Dude, I cannot.
Yeah.
I cannot. Big clothes to hide weapons. Yeah,
it's true.
Jaco said, then who will Rudy marry after that?
I will not be remarrying.
Yeah, amen,
Ashley
brother.
does.
I'm not ever going to remarry.
Will your second wife won't like the tattoo?
I had this conversation the other day.
Does this mean Joe was married to a leprechaun once who owned a bulldog?
Yes, that's exactly what that means.
That's awkward.
I would say, Joe, if this was like 20 years ago, well, no, it's not. Let's say it was like 10 years ago, and your kids are still really young. Even then, at that point, like right now, I have a 1-year-old daughter, and let's just say I already have my other daughter who's born. She's not born yet. Even in that situation, I would not remarry.
I'm never going to remarry.
Yeah.
Even if my kids were the tiniest.
Yeah.
I've already made the commitment to remain a celibate for the rest of my life if it be God's holy will that my wife should pass and or divorce me. I'm not doing it. Now, I have specific reasons why I'm not doing it, and I share those in my talks and my testimonies, and I've talked about it here before as well. But yeah, no, I'm not doing that either. But I tell you what, I wish I could go back to smack upside the head that younger Joe McClain, get him to my grandparents were asking me about that. Like we were talking about my time in Hawaii, and my dad brought up the fact that I had gone scuba diving, and I'm like, I really wish I had done more of that. And my grandmother kind of asked me about that. And I'm like, what do you mean? I wish I had not squandered my time in the Marine Corps doing immoral things. I wish I would have rather spent my time taking my job seriously, becoming excellent at what I did professionally, giving honor and integrity to my country in service rather than the service that I rendered to it.
Goofing around.
Making horrible choices. I wish I had hiked the mountains in Hawaii. I wish I had scuba dived the wreckage underneath. The sea wrecks that you can scuba dive there are amazing. I wasted the time. I mean, I did some scuba diving. I did a lot of snorkeling, which was awesome, but I could have done 1,000 times more. And instead, I was too busy chasing skirt. It was horrible. Like
I could have bought a Bitcoin.
So there's the immorality of what I was doing, but then there's just the practical. Look, you're an idiot. Like you're missing it on so many levels here. Like you could have done so much more, And I look back, and there are those few men who I remember very distinctly that, in spite of the peer pressures that we were contributing to, they ignored all of our shenanigans, kept their nose to the grindstone, and achieved amazing things. Let alone maintain a moral compass that I could not even begin to imagine for another 20 years.
What you described was my 2010 through 2012.
Right, yeah. I mean, many of us have the same story.
I wish I had bought some Bitcoin when it was cheap.
Why did I not buy the Bitcoin?
Did y'all see the story about the nun who was on The Voice, left the nunnery?
The nunneries, the Italian lady.
Yeah, she said she was saying "like a virgin," which was horrifically blasphemous.
Yeah, I wonder if that was her idea or someone said, "Hey, you should sing this song because it would be funny."
But she said she was interviewed and she said, "I believe that you need to listen to your heart with courage. Change is a sign of evolution, but it's always scary because it's easier to anchor oneself to uncertainties rather than questioning oneself. Is there a right or wrong?" And she says that she said that leaving the nunhood, a decision a psychologist helped her to process.
Of course. No. Psychologist.
Did not mean she had
Good
renounced her
times.
faith, but she was chasing her dream of a career in music. She said, quote, "I chose to follow my heart without thinking about what people would say about me. I took a leap of faith and was worried about ending up under a bridge. I always repeated this to my psychologist."
Wow. My psychologist said I deserve better. My psychologist told me,
how many divorces have psychologists started?
I deserve to be famous and rich and wear makeup.
She said Christina reached such a high level of fame, she was getting calls from around the world and also some criticism, which probably left her in a state of confusion.
Yeah.
Leaving was her own decision after appearing on TV so much, you perhaps lose the compass a little. She was young and under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing. Father John Stone, who is a formator of the Augustinians, he said that this was a horrible thing upon her superiors. Her superiors should never, ever have let such a young novice leave the convent.
That's right.
At all.
Or participate in this game show.
Right, of course. But he's saying, like, even as a novice, you shouldn't be leaving the convent. You should only be allowed to leave the convent once you're a long experienced religious, and then you should be allowed to leave.
There was a couple of years ago, there was, I think, a book written about this religious sister who back in the 60s was famous. Her name is escaping me. I'm sure some of you remember her. She was very famous, a singer. And she left it all behind to go full-time into religious life. She never looked back. And then now in her elderly years, her story was written about. So a couple of years ago, it came out, and she was being interviewed and all of that. Temptations, man. Fame and fortune is a huge temptation.
What's the lesson here? Don't let religious sisters sing on The Voice.
What does it benefit you to gain the whole world but to lose your soul? Good news is here at CDT, we don't have anything to worry about because we have very little fame and fortune temptations anymore. Praise be to God. God love you all. Thanks for having a chat with us today. We enjoyed having you on. Dr. Paul Kingor is back on the program tomorrow to follow up on Bella Dodd. And we have a lot more good content this week. God bless you. God love you. We'll see you then.
Thank you for joining us on Your Catholic Drive Time, where it is our pleasure to keep you informed and inspired. Join
Jesus is a friend of mine. Jesus is my friend. Jesus is a friend of mine. Don't do it. It won't get done. If God don't will. Oh, what up with that? Oh, what up with that?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man.
Go, Brandon. I agree. Hey.